And so when I say Chinese, I want you to scream out the nation that's associated with this. For example, if I say Chinese, you're going to say what?
China.
All right, let's say it with authority. When I say Chinese, you say what? China. All right, that's just a test right there. So here we go. Chinese.
China.
Russian.
Russia.
Italian.
Italy.
German.
Germany.
Swedish.
Sweden.
Korean.
Korea.
Egyptian.
Egypt.
Nigerian.
Nigeria.
Black.
Exactly. Nothing. Tell him, Pastor. Tell him, Pastor. Black, nothing.
I hope you were able to successfully identify the issue.
One of the great Tzfat rituals was the rite, the cult, shall I say, of the Shekhinah and the cult of the divine marriage. Now, people don't really think about this when they go to temple in America and rise at the end of a certain hymn and bow and sing, "Come, O bride, come, O bride." But in fact, the Tzfat Kabbalists viewed the Friday night service and meal as a wedding feast, when the divine parts of God above unified with the earthly, feminine aspect of God in the world, the Shekhinah, and they had sexual union on Friday night. And this has survived into general Jewish practice to this day.
The Wailing Wall is the seat of a satanic ritual outlined by the 13th century Jewish occult system known as the Kabbalah, as expounded in the Zohar and expanded upon by the 18th century Hasidic movement. You see, this so-called divine presence at the Wailing Wall is actually the Kabbalistic feminine emanation of their false god, the Shekinah. Watch closely how the rabbis thrust their pelvises and penises back and forth in a prescribed prayer movement called davening, in which the Jew copulates with the Shekinah in order to give birth to an erotic union with the Ein Sof, the Kabbalistic masculine emanation of their false god. Now watch this young Jewish boy who, instinctively knowing that davening is a lewd and embarrassing act, just can't bring himself to perform the thrusting of his pelvis.
The major symbolic code found in the Zohar is the 10 aspects of God's personality, the 10 Sefirot. One popular interpretation shows these characteristics as a map of God's body. Kabbalists believe that if they can understand God's anatomy, they can learn how his powers work. These ancient drawings reveal that God's body is similar to humans. The top symbolizes God's head, which is the source of will, wisdom, and understanding. Below that are symmetrically arranged organs and limbs, representing love, power, beauty, eternity, and splendor. The most unusual part of the diagram contains sensual imagery. The ninth part of God, called the foundation, is the phallus, or procreative life force of the universe. But according to the Sefirot, God also has female components. The final element, often called Shekinah, was depicted as the feminine half of God.
But the Zohar insists on reading the words in the precise order in which they appear in Hebrew. Bereshit, in the beginning. Bara, it created. Elohim, God. In the beginning, it created God. The Zohar takes that to mean, in the beginning, infinity created God. Now, what could that possibly mean? God is now the object of the verse, not the subject, which sounds impossible or heretical, but the Zohar, I think, is saying that infinity is the true reality of God. Anything else that we call God is puny compared to that. That's our own imagination or our own estimate of what God could be. That's our own imagination or our own estimate of what God could be.
That's our own imagination or our own estimate of what God could be.
It doesn't do justice to the true reality of God. So infinity brought about all that we think of as God. And for the Zohar, that's the meaning of the opening of Genesis. In the beginning, infinity created what we call God.
Cults and the bloodlines that continue to these generations, and I think you're the first survivor, perhaps, who's actually detailed how that has continued over the ages. So if you could maybe expand on that a little bit, I think the viewers would find this fascinating.
What specifically would you like expanded on?
So what was the cult that you mentioned earlier, the ancient one?
The cult of Baal, B-A-L.
Yes.
B-A-L.
Yep.
I know very little about it. My family masqueraded themselves as Jewish publicly. But behind closed doors, at Passover dinners, when I was drugged, would admit, we are Satanists.
And here's what I would like to say to you, Rabbi, since you're quoting scripture, okay? The one that's relevant to me is woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness. And if you'd like to dive into a little more scripture, I think what's relevant is Revelation 3:9. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. And I'm speaking directly to you, Rabbi Shmuley.
Listen, Genesis chapter 11, verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this back, Genesis 14, verse 13, Abraham steps on the scene. Being a descendant of Shem, which is a fact, means Abraham too was black. Abraham, born in the city of a black man, called Nimrod, grandson of Ham. Ham had 4 sons. One was named Canaan. Here, let me do some explaining. Abraham, Isaac was Jacob had 12 sons, for real, and these were the children of Israel. According
I want to say peace and blessings to everyone. Hope and pray all is well with you guys. I know that this is a unscheduled live that I am doing. I was home just kind of meditating on the discussions that we had over the weekend and actually over the past couple of weeks about the cult of Baal. And I wanted to keep that momentum going because I'm going to continue to dive into that this weekend. But I wanted to kind of lay out, do a video today to kind of, set this weekend's lesson up. So I know some of you guys are going to catch this lesson in the rebound, as far as in the replay. So, but I don't want to take up too much time. But this is what this lesson is about. Is really dealing with the cult of Baal. And today, this afternoon, or some of you guys may be at lunch or returning from lunch. Today, the thought that I want to deal with today is the cult of Baal. Erase the true name. Right? Erasing the true name. Erasing the true name. And that name that I'm referring to is the Father's name. So I want to just kind of walk you through this, and just to see how this cult that we're just going to keep the label cult of Baal or cult of Baal. Some would say Baal or Baal or Baal. Just want to make sure that you guys understand that this cult is not playing. It is no joke. It is serious. And this is going to help connect the dots on what we see, why we see it, and how they're able to carry out their agenda. All right, so we're going to get right into it. I just want to say shout outs to everyone that's tuning in today, tuning in at this hour. So want to say to the moderators, if we have any moderators inside the chat, you guys know what we do here. Anyone that's being disruptive, you know what to do, kick them out, because we don't need to have that type of craziness here. All right. And I want to make sure you guys understand too, is that one of the things that I see that plagues many people that believe in the holy text, that's following the Most High, following the Son, and following the Holy Spirit, we tend to fall into this approach that if you don't like the messenger, then that's going to take away from whatever truth that messenger could be bringing forth. I'll use it for an example. Candace Owens. You guys see that I've posted some of Candace Owens videos, and some of you guys that have followed say, "Hey, wait a minute, are you supporting Candace Owens?" It's like, no, it's not about Candace Owens. It's about the fact that she says something that is truthful, and I'm going to highlight that truth. I'm not saying everything she said is truthful, but when it comes to the discussion about the 1948ers, she's been truthful, right? What's her name? The congresswoman down in Georgia, Marjorie Taylor Greene. She says something truthful about the 1948ers, and I posted it. So it's not about, for me, it's not about who is telling or the bringer of that message, right? If it's truth, it's truth. And that's what we have to get outside of this religious mindset, especially as a community, because that's how we roll. That's how we've been programmed to roll. And from that angle, that's part of the behavior of protecting the abuser. Christianity, Catholicism, Islam, all these so-called Abrahamic faiths, Judaism, all of them have one theme in common, and that is to demonize the perpetrator, demonize the victim and victimize the perpetrator. All right, so we're going to get right into it. We have a lot to cover. And like I said, this is going to be kind of like a setup for this weekend. All right, setup for this weekend. All right, yeah, I got to get it done. Great. I agree, Brother Glenn. I agree. I've been told that, and I need to do that, right? Even if I need to mail it to myself, I got to get that done. All right. Really appreciate you, brother. Really appreciate it. And already I see a super chat here. I want to say peace and blessings. Thank you for the love and support. Let's see here. Dewan, we'll really thank you for the love and support. William Guy Carr, Pawns in the Game is a great book. All right, I'll take a look at that book. Really appreciate the recommendation. And I'll take a look at it. Appreciate the recommendation. And family, let's show some love for the contribution that we have this afternoon. All right. Thank you again, Brother Jawan. Really appreciate it. And I will take a look at that book. All right. So let's go and get into it. Because we have a lot to unpack. The cult of Baal erase the true name. And we can put an additional word to this. And that's forever. Erase the true name forever. So let's go and get into it, family. Again, appreciate you guys for tuning in this afternoon. We got a lot to cover, but I want to just kind of lay the foundation, starting with this key biblical prophecy, Revelation chapter 13, verse 7. And this is going to help set the tone for this lesson this afternoon. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and power was given him over over all kindreds. In other words, the Hebrew word is Shabbat, and tongues, Lashon, and nations. Gawayam in the Israeli tongue is pronounced Goyim. So, and we'll touch on this a little more as we progress, because I know many really don't understand the difference between ancient Paleo Hebrew and the Israeli language. So I'll try to, as we continue, I may touch on that, just so that way those that are watching for the first time, joining us for the first time, you are up to speed with the verbiage. All right. So let me read it again. Revelation chapter 13, verse 7. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints. Now, this is dealing with the holy people of Yah, the holy people of Yahweh. This is tying into Daniel chapter 7, right? Quadash, right? And the people that that this passage is referring to is the Israelites, right? The Israelites, and of course, all those that are not Israel, blood descendants of Israel, who choose to follow and embrace Yahweh, right? Now, I know you guys hear me saying Yahweh, but we're not going to get into the semantics right now, but as we progress, you'll understand, okay? But let me read it one more time. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and power was given him over all kindred. Shabbat, right? That's words have meaning, and mispronouncing a word can make a world of a difference. So as you see, the word Shabbat means kindreds. The word Shabbath means the day of rest. It means celebration. I know from the Greek pronunciation of it, many will say Sabbat or Shabbat or Sabbath, but the actual ancient pronunciation is Shabbath. All right. Now this is spelled wrong. It should have an H there. So my apologies. No. I'm correct. I'm thinking of the Shabbat. I'm thinking of another slide, but we're good. So Shabbat, Lashon means tongues. It means language. And again, nations, Gawayam, and in the Israeli tongue, it's pronounced Goyim. All right, let's continue. So power was given him over all kindreds and tongues. Let me say that again. Power, kabod, was given him over all kindreds, Shabbat, and tongues, Lashon. And so the serpent, right? The scriptures makes it clear. The serpent, Nakash, gave this beast power over all kindreds and over all tongues. And that's important to understand. Tongues, language. We're not dealing with, like many would, from the Pentecostal church, right? They'll get into this speaking in tongues. No, we're not dealing with speaking in tongues, or the proper transliteration would be speaking in other languages. Not anyway, let me leave that alone. I'm going to leave that alone. But nevertheless, let's continue, family. So how important is it for Israel to speak their native language? How important is it for the ancient Israelites to speak their native language? Well, Nehemiah chapter 13, verse 23 and 24 tells us and provides us the answer. Here it says, in those days I saw Yehoiada, in other words, Judah, that had married wives of Ashad and Ammon and of Moab, and their children spake half in the speech of Ashad, and could not speak in the Yehoiada, in other words, Judah language, but according to the language of each people. So let's summarize this real quick. The children at that time could not speak their native Hebrew tongue. And the dialect of Hebrew that they spoke at that time of the writing of this passage is ancient Hebrew. It was referred to as Judah's language, Judah's tongue, Yehoiada Lashon. Right? So when we start understanding languages, when you start understanding the word Shemitic, right, that was initially established as a language group. But it wasn't until like the 17th century, the 1948ers, took the word Semitic, right, and created, used it as a ethnic group and added the extra entry, the most recent entry, you'll see the word Jew there. All right. So not getting into all the details tonight. We got a lot that we're going to cover. Or this afternoon, we got a lot to cover. And we have more to share this weekend, this Friday night, Shabbat night. All right. So let's continue. So restoring a lost language. This meant that the children would not be able to read and understand the law. Right. So them losing their language because their father, right, the men began to mix and mingle with other nations, and at the expense of their selfishness, their children no longer understood their own native tongue. They knew the languages of the foreign women that they were marrying. Okay. So unless the situation could be corrected, the compromise of mixed marriages will only grow. Eventually, a whole generation of children would not be able to speak Hebrew, would not be able to speak the language of Judah, which meant that they would be ignorant of Yahweh's word and of the laws that were to govern the ancient Israelites. So Yahweh began to marry daughters of the Confederate who made a promise to destroy them. Now, for those that are joining for the first time, I'm not going to get into the crafty counsel, but I encourage you guys to read the 83rd book of Psalms, and then you'll get an understanding of what I mean when it says the Confederate, because that will give you more understanding of the crafty counsel and their agenda. Okay? So, disclaimer that I want to make sure we understand. The ancient Hebrew I speak and teach is the language of Judah, Yahweh. Any other names that many have come up with to try to argue against those that are that don't embrace Christianity, that don't embrace Catholicism, that's not embracing Judaism, that's not embracing Islam, but is still what? Practicing the law, statutes, and commandments by way of what? Just going directly into the text, free from all these religious layers. That's honoring the law and the prophets, the first 5 books of the Bible, followed by the prophets, and then of course we have the testaments of the disciples. Those of us who chose to leave all these religious systems alone and come from under that witchcraft, believing that, or that spell, believing that you need one of these Abrahamic religions that Abraham didn't even create in order to have a relationship. Kind of like the church. If you leave a church, they'll have everyone believe that you left the Messiah, you left Christ. And that's the furthest thing from the truth. So you don't need to have a religion such as Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism, and Islam to have a relationship with the Father, right? And appreciate his Son and embrace his Holy Spirit. So I want to make sure you guys understand that. So when you hear me say certain things, I know this may turn some people off initially when they hear me say this. I do not follow any of these so-called Abrahamic religions, because these Abrahamic religions, number one, push colonialism. It pushed contradictory behavior. Matter of fact, it was all of these Abrahamic religions that have enslaved our people, put us in the position that we're in right now. Anyway, let's keep it going, family. All right. So I just want to make sure you guys understand the ancient Hebrew I speak and teach is the language of Judah. So let's keep it going. Let's keep this momentum going. So today, if I had to package this overall thought, I want you to keep in mind and make a note. The cult of Baal in modern times, right? We got to bring what we see in the ancient text, the behaviors and all, and see how that impacts us in the time that we live, and a lot of the things that we see playing out before us, whether it's in the political arena, whether it's just in the educational, whatever the arena it is. We can go to the scriptures and see that all of this have been prophesied. But again, we still have to understand the proper context and how everything is being carried out before our eyes, starting with understanding the cult of Baal and the times that we live in. What is Baal worship? And I'm going to explain this real quick before we get to the main meat and potatoes of this lesson. So Baal worship consists of child sacrifice, fire rituals, cannibalism, and secret priesthood, right? The word Baal actually means confusion by mixing. Didn't think about putting a definition here. I should have placed it in here as well, but you can look it up. Baal means confusion by mixing. And one thing that's in common that these Abrahamic faiths have in common is the confusion it creates by what? Mixing and meshing. So Baal worship, right? This worship of confusion, it consists of child sacrifice, fire rituals, cannibalism, and secret priesthood. So how did Baal worship survive? How did this worship survive? That's a great question, right? Something to think about. Baal worship continued to survive by disguising themselves in new systems such as religion, politics, and secret societies. Let me say that again. Baal worship continued to survive by disguising themselves in new systems of religion, politics, and secret societies. And it's really not that secret because it's in our face. It's just that we don't have the discernment to see it because of how we've been programmed. What is the Bohemian Grove? And now I encourage you guys, watch the lesson that I did last Saturday night. And we're going to, like I said, we're going to build on this momentum this upcoming weekend. So I'm not going to go into the full details of this here, but just so that way you guys can understand just the surface as we build up this this lesson, paint the picture so you guys can understand some of the tactics, the agenda of this cult. They're not playing. So what is the Bohemian Grove, right? So this is what you see here. You see this fire pit. You see this owl. All of these things have meaning. There's a reason why you see this fiery pit or furnace below the belly. This is where you get the term belly of the beast. There's a reason why you see this person that has the fish hat on. Who wears the fish hat? All of these have meanings. This is not just happenstance, but I'm not going to get into the details of this today, but we'll save that for this weekend. So are there any laws that forbid the calling of other deities outside of Yahweh's Yahweh of the Israelites? Let me ask that question again. Are there any laws that forbid the calling of other deities outside of the Yahweh, outside of the Yahweh of the Israelites? Right? And excuse me, my typo. I'm gonna have to correct the way that I put this sentence together. Right? But anyway, are there any laws that forbid the calling on other deities outside of Yahweh, the Elohim of the Israelites? Are there any laws? And family, this is the angle that we're going to really come at it today. Language is what we're really going to focus on to show you how manipulation, how they carry out their agendas through what? Language. And for those that haven't been following me, Genesis chapter 10 gives you the pillars of what constitutes a nation. And you'll see there, it says land, family, and tongues. After each son of Noah, each one of them established for themselves land, family, tongues, which forms what is called heritage. Heritage means valued objects. And those valued objects, again, is land, family, tongues, and also the culture. Each one has their own culture. So are there any laws? When I say laws, I'm dealing with the scriptures that forbid the calling on other deities outside of Yahweh, the Elohim of the Israelites. We're going to answer this question. Let's start with Exodus chapter 23, verse 13. All right. And let me fix this here. I can see that there's an error with the slide in terms of the animation. I can see it before it occurs. So let me fix this real quick because the KJV version of translation of this passage didn't come up. And I know that there's an issue with the animation. So let me fix this real quick. Only will take just a second. Let me make sure. Let's see here. All right, let's do it like this. I want to make sure I fix this. All right. All right, there we go. That was pretty simple. All right, so let's continue. Let me minimize this here. All right, so Exodus 23, chapter 23, verse 13, right? That's the passages that we're highlighting, not 10 and 10. That's incorrect at the base here. But Exodus chapter 23, verse 13, and it reads, "And in all things that I have said unto you, be circumspect, and make no mention, Zachariah, of the name Sham or Shama of other deities, Alahayim. Neither let it be heard, Shama'i, some of you guys would say Shema, out of thy mouth, Pi or Paya." Let me read it one more time. "And in all things that I have said unto you, be circumspect, and make no mentions of the name of other deities, neither let it be heard out of the mouth of thy mouth." This is a commandment here. This is a commandment here. So we have a lot to unpack here, because we've been, through religious systems, have been breaking this commandment and are breaking it even in the translations that we have. Let me prove it. Now, this is the NIV version of the transliteration or translation of the text. It reads, "Be careful to do everything I have said to you. Do not invoke the names of other deities." Notice I'm saying deities. "Do not let them be heard on your lips." I'm saying deities for a reason. So let's deal with this word mention. Let's see what it means in Hebrew. Right? Zakar, right? It says to mark, so as to be recognized. An example, to remember, to mention, be mindful, make to be remembered, bring, in other words, call, come, keep, put, right? Bring to remembrance, right? Bring in remembrance. Call in remembrance, or call to remember. So these are different ways that you could read this right here, but just you guys get the gist of it, right? It says also recall. But I want to deal with this word invoke, because I like the NIV transliteration of this passage, even though I don't roll with the NIV. That's a whole nother discussion, especially when you start getting into the manuscripts. I'm not going to do that tonight. This afternoon, I'm not going to go geek mode on you guys. But anyway, the Oxford Dictionary definition of the word invoke. Let's see what it means. But I do like how it reads. And I know I do like that key word, because it really places the point of emphasis on what this commandment is charging the Israelites not to do. So here it is, invoke. It means cite or appeal to someone or something as an authority for action or in support of an argument. And then the sub-entry says call on, in other words, a deity or spirit in prayer as a witness or for inspiration. And then we see another sub-entry, 1.1, it says summon, in other words, a spirit by charms or incantations. Oh, we got a lot to unpack, family. We got a lot to unpack. So summon. Remember, summon means invoke means to summon, in other words, a spirit by charms or incantations. So let's look at the word charms. Let's go to the etymology dictionary definition of charms. Look at what it says. Incantation, magic charm, magic spell, incantation, song, enchantment, religious formula. From the word canary, means to sing. So think about the word canary and think about the word parakeet, those two birds. They have a gift of what? Repeating, echoing what they hear. So canary, they can mimic pretty much any sound, just like a parakeet. So that's what charms are. That's what charms, get you to repeat and recite spells as they cast it, to reiterate it over and over again, so that way it keeps you bound to it. The verb aspect of this word, it says to recite or cast a magic spell, to enchant, in other words, to fill someone with desire. So again, the scripture says, do not, at least the NIV transliteration of the text, it says, do not invoke the names of other deities. Of course, we see the word God or gods there. So let's deal with the Hebrew definition of the word name real quick, so you understand what name is. Sham is the ancient pronunciation of it. Shem or Shem, right? That is the Israeli pronunciation of it. So Sham in ancient Hebrew, it means mark or memorial of individuality. In other words, that means, what that is saying is it could be a literal name. But it also says by implication, it means honor, authority, character, fame, infame, infamous, renown, report. But it also means, as you see down at the bottom here, I'll zoom it in so you can see it. It also means reputation, glory. All right. So we want to make sure you guys understand that. When we deal with name, many cases, it's not dealing with just a literal name, but it's dealing with the bearer of the name. In other words, the authority of that person, the reputation of that person, the character of that person. So according to scripture, we are forbidden to call on the literal name and reputation of other deities. Now, the church, when I say the church, Roman Catholicism, Christianity, the church and its syncretism and its desire to convert as many people as possible to their religion in order to increase its wealth and prestige, absorbs so many local beliefs. Now, I want you guys to make a note of that word syncretism. Make a note of that word syncretism, because that is a tool by colonizers that colonizers use, starting with religion. Syncretism. Make a note of that. So the church would allow any pagan custom as long as these pagans would recognize the supremacy of Jesus Christ as their head God. That's right. These words are there for a reason. Notice how I spelled that. I didn't spell it G-O-D. I spelled it G-O-T-T, because we're going to break this thing down. With the Pope as his agent on earth. Let me say this again. The church, in other words, the Roman Catholic Church, the Christian Church, and all of these different denominations that spawned out of this group, would allow any pagan custom as long as these pagans would recognize the supremacy of Jesus Christ as their head God, G-O-T-T, with the Pope as his agent on the earth. Establishing a common belief system through syncretism is much more important than the sources of the belief. Let me say that again. According to these religious systems, establishing a common belief system through syncretism is much more important than are the sources of the beliefs. And this is not just with Christianity and Catholicism, it's with Judaism, it's with Islam as well. We could prove that. But today we're really focusing on a lot on Catholicism today. All right. Are there any Semitic references or Shemitic references to the word God? And we're going to break down syncretism in a second here. But are there any Semitic or Shemitic references to the word God? Would you find the word God in ancient Hebrew, ancient Paleo Hebrew? Are there any references to it? Because this is one of the things we have to make sure that you sharpen your discernment, so that way you don't get caught or tossed to or fro by every wind of doctrine? Well, let's answer this question. This is coming from Ernest Klein, A Comprehensive Etymological Dictionary of the Hebrew Language. Definition of God. Because some will point to God to say, see, the actual name of this word G-O-T-T is in the scripture. But let me give you proper clarity so that way we can further sift out the poor teaching. This deception, okay? Look at what it says here. We see God, right? That's the ancient pronunciation of it. God or Gada. Look at what it means. Good fortune, luck, name of the god fortune or deity of fortune, inscriptions, and as an element in many private names. We see here good fortune, good luck. This is not referring to our Elohim. This is not referring to the Father Yah or Yahweh. This is referring to one of the tribes. We're dealing with God, but not as from, anyway, let me leave that alone. But I want you to pay attention to the definition of this name. Good fortune, luck. Name of the god of fortune, the deity of fortune, the Got, G-O-T-T. I'm going to use G-O-T-T of fortune. Now let's break this down, right? Let's break this down. I'm going to use one more source and then we get to the root of this Got or Gotters, right? Gotters plurality, right? Dealing with the true tense of who's this god or goddess of fortune. But let's go to another source, Hebrew and Chaldean lexicon to the Old Testament scriptures, right? Let's see what it says here. Let's see how God is defined here, right? As you see here, God, you see fortune. We see especially the divinity of fortune. We're still dealing with what? Fortune, right? Worshipped by the Babylonians and by Israelites exiled among them. So this tells you that some of the Israelites began to embrace some of the Babylonian deities. So we see that this fortune, this Gotter, right? Got or Gotter, this deity stems from Babylon, the Babylonians. But then we're going to see how it's embraced in other cultures. But look at what it says. An example of the planet Jupiter regarded in all the east as the as the giver of good fortune. So we see with two sources, we see God, right, is associated with fortune, a divinity of fortune. All right, let's build on this. It goes on to say, as you see here, the planet Venus called in the east, the lesser good fortune. See under this word, I have treated of these religions a greater length. We're not going to read all that, but you get it. Look at here. You see fortune. You see fortuna. Who is the divinity of fortune? Who is the divinity of fortuna? Who is this divinity? Who is this this goddess? Who is this Got? G-O-T-T. Who is she? Well, they also call her the grandma of the wheel. That's who she is right here. That's fortune. And you guys going to recognize her, right? Because right now, it's all over the news about a particular event that's taking place right now. And I'll break it down here. Fortune, the Roman triple goddess of fate. Let me say that again. The Roman triple goddess of fate had many fortune titles. And then this gives you a number of the titles, right? But it goes on to say good and bad fate. So this fortune, this goddess fortune, right, which is part of the triple goddess, right? The Roman triple goddess of fate, right? Fortune, it says good and bad. So good fortune and bad fortune. It goes on to say, Romans swore by the emperor's personal fortuna, who governed his soul. Uh-oh. We getting there, family. Look at, you guys going to start making the connection of who this fortuna is, this goddess is. Look at what it says here. Greek Tyche was the same as fortune. When she was a fate attached to an individual, like a guardian angel, she was a psychic, in other words, soul, or anima, in other words, spirit. Her Roman name, Fortuna, may have descended from Fortuna or Fortuna. In other words, it means she who turns the year. The great mother turning the celestial wheel of the stars. Wait a minute, Wheel of Fortune? Yes, family. This is where you get the Wheel of Fortune. This is where you get the lottery. This is where you get the term Lady Luck from. This is why you see people are doing what? Going crazy over this $1 billion what? Lottery. Also, the karmic wheel of fate. So on the Orphic Bowl of the 5th century AD, he appeared next to her in the guise of the Lord of Death. Halfway around the circle, at the point of midnight, holding down his right hand, the poppy stalk of the sleep of death turned down, in this case, Fortuna and her consort stood for a fortunate life, followed by a gentle death. So the goddess favorite one went to her paradise in the far west, often called Fortunate Isles or Fortunate Islands. On the goddess's magic wheel of time, odd numbers were sacred to her and even numbers to her consort. So this is where you start getting into the roulette table. This is where you get into what? The cards, the black cards, the red cards. All of this points to this here, this deity here. Look at this here. Fortuna became patroness of gamblers when her fate wheel was secularized as the carnival wheel of fortune, and she was renamed Lady Luck. Let's continue here, family. So I want to connect the dots here. Continue to connect the dots with this cult of Baal. The Catholic Encyclopedia itself confirms what I'm saying here, that the word God has nothing to do with the covenant name of Yahweh, and its etymology proves it was a generic pagan term. So let's go here to the source here. All right, let's go to the source here. Let me do something here real quick. Make sure that, bear with me 1 minute. All right. All right. So this is coming from a Catholic source, and look at what the Catholic source says here. And matter of fact, I'll drop this link inside the comment section, because I believe in sharing sources here. I don't believe in hoarding resources, and you guys can vet this source as well. All right, let me drop the link here. And guys, vet these sources. Vet these sources. Don't just take my word for it. Vet these sources, right? Here's a source right here that I'm reading from. All right. The etymology of the word God. Look at what it says here. Anglo-Saxon God, German Gott. So make a note of that. G-O-T-T. And it says akin to Persian, Koda, Hindu, Kuda. God can variously be defined as the proper name of the one supreme or infinite personal being, the creator and the ruler of the universe, to whom man owes obedience and worship. The common or generic name, make a note of that word, generic. The common or generic name of the several supposed beings to whom in polytheistic religions divine attributes are ascribed in divine worship is rendered. The name sometimes apply to an idol. You see how generic this word is, gotter? It says the name sometimes applied to an idol as the image or dwelling place of a god. Come on, we're gonna break this down, family. The root meaning of the name, in other words, from the Gothic root gu or geu or hu, however you want to pronounce it, Sanskrit hub or emu, to invoke or to sacrifice to. Wait a minute. So you are invoking, they're making it clear, you're invoking generic. Something generic. Wait a minute. Let's look here. Is either the one invoked or the one sacrificed to? From different Indo-Germanic roots, right? And this giving some different definitions here: to shine, give light, to implore. But it goes on to say, come the Indo-Iranian, diva. That's right, diva is a goddess, according to Hinduism. Diva and also thug. Diva is their what's her name? What's one of the names? Kali. Kali is a diva. The thug or thuggy is the men who would kill other men from their community, stalking them at the subway station. Look it up, family. I'm not making this up. So you see all these things, even in the hip hop culture, diva and thuggy. When did that get introduced? Who introduced it to our younger generation at that time? We had no clue about being a thug and being a diva. We were too young to understand that when we were pop locking and break dancing. Who introduced that to our community? Through the music industry. So Latin, we see deus. The Greek, we see theos. Irish and Gaelic, we see dia. All which are what? Generic names. Let me say that again. All what I mentioned to you, as according to the Roman Catholic Church, this is their source, they are generic names. So why are we addicted to this? Why are we addicted to this name? And it's a generic name that's not even biblical. I know someone say, well, it's in the Bible. God is in the Bible. That's a transliteration. Who put that name there? Who chose that name? This is where you get into syncretism. Look at this here. Teutonic two or tui, right? Tiu or two, even I actually still say two. Surviving in Tuesday, the name Tuesday, right? So many of the days of the week points to Norse deities. That's what this is. The Tuesday represents a Norse deity, all right? Latin, Janus, Diana, right? That's Wonder Woman, right? Diana Themyscira, that's the name of Wonder Woman. You see her inside the book of Acts. Anyway, that's a whole nother discussion. And other proper names of pagan deities. And then we see here the common name most widely used in Semitic occurs as El in Hebrew. This is not an ancient pronunciation in Hebrew. That's a modern pronunciation. But anyway, we see Elah, right, in Arabic. And though scholars are not agreed on the point, the root meaning most probably is the strong or mighty one. Come on, family. This is filled with ambiguity. It's all over the place. But yet so many in the church, because of the leaders, because of the so-called church fathers, have been programmed to embrace a generic construct that is not even biblical, that's actually having you break the commandments every time you mention it. Oh, I know some of you guys like, come on, Pastor, you have to bring this. You got to bring proof. Look, by their own words, God or got means nothing more than a being invoked in sacrifice. It's a ritual title, not a name. So that is not the Father's name, right? It is a generic title for any deity used for idols and images, exactly what Exodus 23:13 forbids. Connected to the Indo-European pantheon of deities, Zeus, Jupiter, Tu, Janus, Diana, and others. Come on, family. The word God is a generic title for any deity. Okay. So why the Catholics, why did they do this? Why the Catholics, why did they do this? Why did they do what I'm getting ready to explain to you even more? As far as why did they embrace this name? And why are we addicted to the name? I've had pastors that I've actually had private discussions and telling them, like, look, even if you don't believe, or even if you can't accept the full name, Yahweh, at least say the short form of it. Well, you know what? I'm used to saying God. I'm just going to keep saying God. In other words, I'm used to the witchcraft, and I'm going to continue on being under the witchcraft. I'm used to the charms, so I'm going to continue to be under the charms. And many of our brothers and sisters are behaving the same way, take the same approach. But let's break this down. In Greece, they swapped Yahweh for Theos. Yeah, family. In Greece, when you read the Septuagint, in the Septuagint, in many Greek transliterations, like the Good News, the Testaments of the Disciples, you see Theos is being used as the name of the Father. So that word Theos, according to the Greeks, was used for Zeus. You see the manipulation. And many of our brothers and sisters pump their chests because they learned a Greek word. They learned the Greek words, and they can say, we're going to talk about the theos or the theos. Let's get into the logos and how logos is theos. Sounds good, but they're completely wrong. Way out in left field in this deception. Let's continue, family. In Rome, they swapped Deus or Deus from Jupiter and Zeus. In Germany and England, they swapped the word Gott, G-O-T-T, for God. And it comes from the Norse Teutonic deities, their terms. That's right. Gott is a Norse term, and it points to the Norse deities. God is singular, Götter is plural. Oh, that cult of Baal is no joke, family. Instead of teaching Yahweh's name, they picked the local pagan word for deity so the masses would convert without letting go of their vocabulary. So what the Catholic Church would do, they'll try to come up with words that's comfortable for the local people that they have conquered, and now they're pushing their delusion to and saying, hey, you know what? Do you have a name for God, right? Or do you have a supreme spirit or something like that? And they would say, hey, you know what? Let's just say it's spirit make gum. Well, you know what? We're going to call the transliteration of what's the name of the Father, we're going to call it spearmint. Do you have another spirit that's in conjunction with that may be a lower spirit? And then they'll say, well, we're going to call it, they may say juicy fruit. Well, you know what? We're going to use juicy fruit to be the sun. Come on, family. That's what syncretism is. Mixing and meshing. That's part of the Babylonian or Baal approach. Remember, Baal means confusion by what? Mixing. Okay, let's prove this. The Catholic Church's own words, Their own etymological records prove that the ancient Israelites could not, it would not have accepted this word God or Got, G-O-T-T, because those words were born from pagan invocations and sacrifice, not from the relationship of Yahweh. Let's go to Exodus chapter 20, verse 1 through 4. Look at what it says here. And Elohim spake all these words, saying, I am Yahweh thy Elohim, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. It goes on to say, and thou shalt have no other Elohim before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven images or any likeness of anything that is in heaven, above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. So how and why are the followers of the way, because that was the true name, they weren't, their names weren't Christians. Paul never called himself a Christian. You will not see the word Christian in any of his letters. They all referred to themselves, the early Hebrew Israelite followers of the Messiah, the very first ones. They refer to themselves as followers of the way. The book of Acts, I believe chapter either 24, chapter 28, records Paul's own words stating that he is a follower of the way. But that's a whole nother deception, right? To address, right? The word Christian, Christos Ianos, which means slave to. Christos means Messiah in Greek. Ianos means slave to. It was a derogative word. They never embraced this. The early followers of the way never embraced this. Anyway, let me leave that alone because I don't want to take up too much of your time. I want to stay on topic here, stay anchored here. So how and why are the followers of the way deceived into calling on other deities? That's what it should be here. Calling on other deities. I got to spell check this. I got to clean this lesson up. But the answer to that question is syncretism. Through syncretism, let me show you how it operates. I'm going to show you how syncretism played a major part in why you see so many of the nations in Africa embracing Catholicism. Let me prove it here. Syncretism, reconciliation of different beliefs, union of communities to combine against a common enemy. We see here lying, to lie like a Cretan, to mix, blend, mixture. But yet we're called to be separated, right? So let's deal with this source here. And it's going to really, I'm going to use this source here to really explain what syncretism is. Afro-Christian syncretism in the Kingdom of Congo, volume 54, number 1, page 55. Look at what it says here. The early Christianity absorbed Hellenistic elements, among others, through the vehicle of prophecy and divine revelation, as much as through a process of matching or exchanging core values. So too did the development of medieval Christianity, Catholicism, and its engagement with the religions of Northwestern Europe. The question, important in particular, to those who study the Congo diaspora, to the Americas, of whether or not, or of whether or to what degree the Congo were Christian is ultimately really a sectarian one over what constitutes the core principles of Christianity. Throughout its history, as a world religion, Christianity has incorporated outside beliefs from its original Jewish millenarian cult to its wedding with Greek philosophy, Roman state demands, Germanic customs, and so on. So this is telling you how Christianity, Catholicism began to take from different cultures, and this is why we see what we see today. And this is a whole nother discussion, Jewish millenarian. This is a whole nother discussion because they operate in syncretism. The 1948ers operate in syncretism as well. But look at what it goes on to say, right? It says, the whole history of the church has involved syncretism of one or another sort. And fundamentalists and all eras have sought through its original text to locate or relocate the original unsynchronized religion. See, that's what we're doing in this awakening. Many of us are what? Getting away from all of this stuff that we were, this is where you get the word synchronized. We are getting out of sync, right? With this, this deceptive agenda, this deceptive doctrine. That's why we are so feared. This is why when I say they, the powers that be is doing all they can to monitor what we say and what we do, because it's having an impact. It's having a rippling effect. So what is Catholicism? What is Catholicism? We're bringing this, family, we're hitting hard today so we can set up this weekend. What is Catholicism? Look at what it says here. Catholicism. Catholic, of the doctrines of the ancient church. Okay. You know, they didn't use the word church during that time. They began to use the word church in the 4th century, which is a Celtic word that referred to Stonehenge and their places of worship being circular. But nevertheless, I'm going geek mode a little bit, had a geek flash there. But the word Catholic also means universally accepted. Let me say that again. Catholic also means universally accepted. We see here universal, we see the word general. So Catholic means, simply put, universal. It also means general. Well, let's see what general means. General comes from the word generic. Let me say that again. General comes from the word generic. Let's go to the etymology dictionary definition of the word generic. Look at what it says. Belonging to a large group of objects, race, kind. Give birth, beget, of a general kind, not special. Wait a minute. So you're telling me that generic comes from the word, as we see here, gene, which means give birth, beget. Wait a minute. So the word Genesis also comes from the word gene. Generic also comes from what? The word gene. When you read the book of Genesis, it's all about what? Bloodline. But the Roman Catholic Christian Church has been teaching us that it doesn't matter what our bloodline is. It doesn't matter the color of who Christ is. What really matters is the color of his blood was red. Family, that's a complete lie. If that's the case, why don't they change the actual images that they have right now that they have up in the church? That they have in, when I say church, the Christian Catholic Church. See, this is what the spirit that we were taught to really the approach to take when we see truth and we start seeing the lies of what they've been subjecting us to. They want us to take on this doctrine, this spirit.
It just doesn't matter. 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 It just doesn't matter.
Yeah, family. They want us to take on that spirit of it just doesn't matter. But you know what? This awakening is giving them a headache. We are giving them the headache award. Why? Because we are not accepting the lies anymore. We are removing the middleman, so to speak. We're getting out of that spirit or that psychological condition of Stockholm syndrome and cognitive dissonance, along with herd behavior. So we're giving them the headache award, family. Let's give them the headache award before we continue. Here's the headache award to all of these religious systems. And let's give them the meow award as well. All right, so let's go and continue, family. Let's continue. So that word Catholic means generic. That's right. Take that back to church. Take that foolishness out. Get it out of our spaces. Take it back to the source. Return the sender. All right, so let's continue. So when we see the word universal, because that's the point I really want to bring home here. When you see the word Catholic, it means universal. Let me say that again. Catholic means universal. Universal simply means the doctrine of unity, which we get the concept of the Trinity. Let me say that again. Universal simply means the doctrine of unity, right? This is where they get the concept of the Trinity, right? Because the Trinity is not biblical, even though they'll do everything they can to try to tell you that it's biblical. You could poke holes in that. But I'm not going to do it tonight. But this afternoon, let's deal with uni. Let's deal with uni. Who is uni? Who is uni? Let's see who uni is. Etruscan name for the Great Mother's Holy Trinity, a 3-in-1 goddess who gave birth to the what? Universe. So when you see the word universal, it means the doctrine of who? Unity. So when you see the word Catholic, you are referring to what? The doctrine of the Catholics, the doctrine of unity, the doctrine of unity. Let me say it again. The doctrine of unity. For the people in the back. For the people in the back. Look at what it goes on to say. She was represented by the sign of female genitals. I'm going to say genitalia, all right? Female genitals. Uni was a cognate of yoni. You guys know what the yoni is? That's the delta. That's the female reproductive organ. In Rome, the three were worshipped as the early Capitoline triad. In other words, the Virgin, Mother, and Crone. I have an image of this, a modern image, so you guys can see this. But we'll get to that when we get there. This is where the Trinity come into play. Trinity, the concept, that's right. You have a god or a goddess by the name of concept or idea. It was introduced in the 2nd, 3rd century by Tertullian, who was raised in a pagan type household, a pagan household. This concept, this spirit was introduced. The ancient Israelites never referred to Trinity. That's why you don't see the words inside the scriptures. Godhead doesn't mean 3-in-1. It just simply means deity. That's all it means. And it comes from what? Theos. Let's keep it going, family. So look at here. The Capitoline triad, the Virgin, the Mother, Crone. The Virgin, also referred to as the damsel. Mother, right? You'll see in the statue, it'll be a pregnant woman with her hand over her womb, her stomach, which is called Delphi, right? And then you see Crone, which is also called hag, right? Not as a form of insult that many use today as a slang, but hag, the older woman. These are the triple witches, the Capitoline triad, but they also refer to as the triple witches. And you see part of the triple witches, Travantes, Juno, and we see Minerva. Make a note of Minerva. Make a note of her. But in imperial times, the virgin goddess was removed to make room for Jupiter. The name Uni evolved into June, Iun, or Juno. All right, let's keep it going. What is Christendom? Because you see, Christendom is going to tie right into Catholicism. Look at what Christendom means. Even though this word was being started, its conception and being used in the 10th century. Look at this, Christendom, the worldwide body or society of Christians. But the key here, look at what it's going to do. It's going to use that word universal. Look at here. He asserts that abortion was universally condemned by Christendom, a crime at common law. Christendom, that's all it is. It's a word that's synonymous to Catholic. Right? So who is God? Who is God? Who is God? Oh, we got to break this down. Who is God? Who is God? Let's see what this, let's go to the etymological dictionary definition of this. Let's see what it says. It says, Old English, God, supreme being, deity of the Christian God, image of a God, godlike, from the Proto-Germanic Guthen or Gudan. In other words, source also of Old Saxon, Frisian, Dutch, God, Old High German, Gott, German, Gott with 2 T's. So you see the origin of this word is Germanic. Germanic, when you see here where it says Proto-Germanic, when you understand the Proto-Germanic, or should I say Proto-Indo-European tree of languages, German or the Germanic is one of the trunks. And many of these different languages, Old Saxon, Frisian, Dutch, English, these are all part of that trunk. Germanic, their primary culture, belief system is Norse, like Thor, Loki, Odin, and all these guys, Midgard. All right, let's continue. So Gott, right, is singular. I want to make sure you guys understand this. Gott is singular. Götter is plural. Let me say that again. As you see here, Gott, German, right? Gott is singular. Götter is plural. So let me give you the origins of this slang, Gott. And I'm just going to say the full name, Götterdammerung, or Gott D, the GD slang. Let me show you where the origins of that come from. Götterdammerung is where that slang comes from. Let's see what Götterdammerung means. Look at this here. Completely overthrow. Twilight of the gods. In other words, Gott. Dämmerung, dusk, twilight. Timi, in other words, temerity. All right? Well, look at what it says here. It translates Old Norse Ragnarok. Y'all remember that from Thor, Ragnarok, right? The movie. Ragnarok, the doom or destruction of the gods that the last day, world's end. A better translation is Götterdammerung. Oh, come on, family. They all in our business, right? They got us hacked every which way. So let's deal with a deeper discovery of Götterdammerung. Right? It means going into the shadow of the gods, often erroneously called twilight of the gods. The Teutonic doomsday, when all the old gods would be destroyed and reabsorbed by the great goddess Skadi, the shadow. Like Kali in the Far East, Skadi stood for the primal womb of darkness that cyclically devoured worlds and gave them new birth. The Scandinavian and Teutonic concept of cyclic universes, right? Doctrines of uni, each with its renewable set of gods, was essentially identical to that of India. All right, so that's Götterdammerung. That's right. That's right, Darkwing. The devil's clever, right? So the Vatican's liturgical department issued a clear directive about using the Father's name. That's right, family. I know you guys didn't know this. I'm going to drop the link in here for you guys to go back and read it. The Catholic Church, they issued a directive to make sure the Father's name is not mentioned and gave key words that they wanted it to be transliterated to. Oh, yeah, family. See, this is so that way they can establish Jesus, which is through the Greek transliterations, versus Joshua, which comes from the ancient Hebrew transliterations. Because Jesus go through, again, it separates the Hebraic origins. Iesus, that's Greek. Come on, family. Iesus is Greek. That's why you see, wait a minute, if Joshua and Jesus have the same name, well, why is their names transliterated differently? That's part of the agenda. Because in Roman Catholicism and Christianity, they are what? Emasculating the Father, so that way they can lift up the Son. That's why you get into when you start dealing with the Trinitarian doctrine, they say what? All are equal in authority. That's what they teach. And if you say anything different, even though the Messiah always paid homage to the Father, that's, according to them, would be considered heretic. Oh, that's right, family. We're going deep here. So the Vatican's liturgical department issued a clear directive about the usage of the Father's name. Let me prove that. I got to give sources, right? The Catholic culture directives on the use of Yahweh and liturgy by Congregation for Divine Worship and the discipline of the sacraments. So I'm going to drop this link inside the chat so you guys can go to the source as well. So let me see if I can get to it real quick before I read it. That's right, family. We're going to, over here, we're tearing down strongholds. We're tearing down strongholds, whether you blood descendants of Israelites, or you are sons of strangers and you want to have a relationship with the Most High, free from all this religious stuff. Guess what? You're at the right channel. If you want to get rid of these strongholds, you're on the right channel, because we don't support none of these religions. None of these religions. And I'm dropping the link so you guys can vet the source. Look at this, family. Don't waver. Don't waver. Stand firm. Stand still. Like Exodus chapter 14, verse 13 to 14. Fear ye not, stand still. See the salvation of Yahweh. These Egyptians that you see here today, these strongholds that these oppressors have created for us today, will not have power over you ever again. The Most High will fight for us, but we have to hold our peace. Come on, family. Let's break this down. Let's see what the directives that the Roman Catholic Church issued that the Christian Church falls in alignment with, because they'll tell you, the Christian Church, no, we're not Catholic. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Let's prove it. Right? We're going to highlight this section. That's what I'm going to read from in my rip page effect. In the light of what has been expounded, the following directives are to be observed. In liturgical celebrations, in songs and prayers, the name of God in the form of the tetragrammaton, right? These are the four letters, Yahweh, right? Yahweh, Yahweh, right? In the Israeli meaning would say Yohed Vahe, but there was no Va sounds in any of the ancient languages. But anyway, you get the gist of it. These four letters, these four consonants, look at what it says, is neither to be used nor pronounced. But they didn't stop there. For the translation of the biblical text in modern languages, destined for the liturgical use of the church, what is already prescribed by number 41 and the instructions, I'm not going to butcher this, right? I don't speak Latin or Greek, so I'm not going to butcher that, right? Is to be followed. That is, divine tetragrammaton is to be rendered by the equivalent, as you see here, Adonai, Kyros. So this is saying, in a nutshell, instead of using the Father name, look at what it tells them to use. Use Lord, Signor, right? This is again some of the different ones. Senor, you see it right here. It's saying use Lord. This is why when you read your scriptures, this is why when you read your Bible, you hardly see the Father's name. You see the Greek transliteration of the ancient pronunciation of the Messiah's name, the Hebrew name. You see the Hebrew transliteration of the ancient name, far as with Joshua, but you don't see the Father. You rarely see the Father's name. You will see Lord or the word God. I'm giving you their own sources, fam. Look at what it goes on to say. And translating in the liturgical context, text is in which are present one after the other, either the Hebrew term Adonai or the Tetragrammaton Yahweh, and many would say, pronounce it Yahweh. Adonai is to be translated Lord, and the form God is to be used for the Tetragrammaton Yahweh, similar to what happens in the Greek transliterations or translations in the Septuagint and in the Latin translation of the Vulgate. Come on, family. It's right there before you. Now, what's interesting when you go into the Latin, the Septuagint, they don't have Greek letters. It's a Greek manuscript, but they have Hebrew letters. That's interesting, right? They have the Hebrew word letters for the Tetragrammaton, whether it's the block letters or when you get to the older, you'll see the paler, but they have Hebrew letters. They don't even use the Greek. Why? Because they want to make sure you pay homage to their deities. See, they want to give you this geist, this charm, this witchcraft, saying, well, the name is so sacred that you can't even pronounce it. So in that place of it, use Lord and use God. Gotter. Come on, family. It's right. I'm giving you nothing but sources. So this directive mandates that translations rendered Yahweh as the equivalent to Adonai or Kyros, in other words, Lord, rather than any form of the divine name. The Catholic Church replaces Yahweh with forms such as Adonai, or in the Israeli, Adonai, right? With Lord, in other words, Dominus, which is Latin, or equivalents in other languages. Going back to Exodus chapter 23, verse 13. And in all things that I have said unto you, be circumspect, make no mentions of the name of other deities, neither let it be heard out of thy mouth. Be careful to do everything I have said. This is coming from the NIV transliteration. I have said to you, do not invoke the names of other deities. Do not let them be heard on your lips. So guess what? In your places of worship, you should not be using the word God or Lord. You should be using Yah or Yahweh. If you don't want to say Yahweh and you're not comfortable with that, say Yah. You should be able to say Yah. It's the same syllable. It's only one syllable, right? Versus God versus Yah. This is a commandment. But oh yeah, that's right. We're not under the law. That's Old Testament stuff. We under a new covenant. That's the witchcraft that we continue to be taught. Let me give some shout outs real quick as we progress here. Really appreciate all you guys for tuning in. All right. Want to give shout outs again for Dejan. Thank you for the love and support. Want to thank you for my brother Charles Miller. Thank you for the love and support. Family, show some love. And also like to show some love again for Mika. Love this stream. Very informative. So again, thank you, brother Dewan. Thank you, my brother Charles Akia. I really appreciate you. Family, let's show some love to all of them for the love and support, as well to Mika. Let's show all three of them love and support, family. Let's give it up for them. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. So look at this, family. Look at this. Man, Hasatan is not playing. Hasatan is not playing. They have done this. They have done a job on all of us. So look at this. This command is twofold, right? Israel must not substitute or invoke pagan deity names. That's number one. Number two, Israel must keep Yahweh's covenant name distinct and exclusive. All right. That's what it means. That's what the Most High means here. All right. That's what the Most High means here. When he says not to invoke, don't summon, don't mention. Oh, come on, family. Come on, family. All right. Let me see here. All right. So the implication, replacing Yahweh's name with titles used for other deities such as Lord, God, Theos, Deus, Krios, or Deus, however you want to pronounce it, Krios, or Kairos, excuse me, is exactly the violation of that we're being warned against. We're being warned against that. So I want to turn your attention over to this guy right here, because I really want you guys to understand the two Greek words, Alpha and Omega. You guys know that, right? Alpha and Omega. Let's break down Alpha and Omega. And I'm going to show you guys, and I want to make this clear. I show certain sources, and sometimes I don't even do certain teachings because I know when I share certain sources, many are going to go out and purchase these sources, and you are not spiritually in a place to be able to read this stuff. So I'm saying this, I'm giving you the disclaimer. If you're not strong spiritually, if you're not strong in the law, which is the first 5 books of the scriptures, and the prophets, which are the prophetic words, including those Psalms and Proverbs, all of that is considered, to be part of the books of prophet, even though many were classified as poetry, but that's part of the prophets. But then also the testament of the disciples, and all. If you're not firm in that, don't read this stuff because it can mess you up. I know how to go through this stuff, right? So, Sex, Symbolism, and Religion, Volume 1, by James Balatin Hane. Right? Let's break this down. Let's see what he says, and I'm going to break some things down here. Look at what he says on page 395. Right? We're going to highlight this right here. And we also know that Hebrews stoop lower than most nations in their degraded phallic exercises, so much so that special commandments had to be issued having connections with goats and other animals. However, that may be the pouring out of the water, which was the concluding nightly ceremony of the Hebrews' great phallic feast, must originally have been in honor of the Queen of Heaven. So we got to break this down. And I'm going to give some pushback here. He gives some great information inside his books on certain things, but reading this book, he is not biblically astute. Because according to his assumption, he's saying that the root of the feast days is all about worshiping and honoring the Queen of Heaven. Well, guess what? Jeremiah chapter 7 says differently. Jeremiah 10 says something differently. Jeremiah 44 says something differently from what his conclusion here. So, but the point that I want to make sure too, he does give some good information inside this book. All right, let's break this down, family. Let's break this down. I'm going to quote, this is his quote again, page 395. However that may be, pouring out of the water, which was the concluding nightly ceremony of Hebrews' great phallic feast, must originally have been in honor of the Queen of Heaven. Let's break this down. Hane overstepped badly, right? With his claim that the Feast of Tabernacles, quote, must originally have been in honor of the Queen of Heaven. This is an extreme assumption that shows he wasn't grounded in his conclusion with Torah. He was on the surface. He was not as astute with the holy text, but in his own comparative religion, phallic symbolism lens. That's all. He was just focused on that. Tunnel vision, right? Let's go to Leviticus 23 and we'll give you clarity. You won't see anything paying homage to the Queen of Heaven. And Yahweh spake, in other words, dabar, unto Masha, Moses, speak, Amar, right? Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, the 15th day of the 7th month shall be the feast, Chag, of tabernacles, Sakath. That's the proper pronunciation of tabernacles from the ancient Paleo-Hebrew, not Succoth, it's Sakath. Let me prove it real quick. Let me let you guys hear a clip by a professor teaching Hebrew, right? And listen to what he says about that O sound. And we're going to talk more about this weekend. Listen close, family.
Here's a chart that summarizes vowel class and length. And you can see across the top the three classes, A, E, and U. And then down the side, the four lengths, long, medium, short, and very short. So let's just go over this chart. We'll start with the A class vowels. The long vowel is cholam vav, and you'll recall that this says O as in snow. Now you might wonder why an O vowel is in the A class, and this is because of historical considerations. Originally, there was no O sound in Hebrew. Everything that is a cholam.
You heard that with your own ears. You saw with your own eyes. There was no O sound in ancient Hebrew. That cholam va, right? At the time of the Masoretes, they pronounced it with an A sound. So when you say Elohim, that's not correct. Even when you mention words that have a U sound, because the U sound vowel extends from the O sound. All of these extends from what? The manipulation of the original A. So this is why you hear me say Chag, Sakath. Sakath is the proper pronunciation. The ancient biblical paleo pronunciation of what of the word that transliterates to tabernacles. All right. So I just wanted to make sure you guys understand this. We're on the same page. So for 7 days unto Yahweh. Okay. Let me read it one more time. Speaking to the children of Israel, saying, the 15th day of the 7th month shall be the Chag, in other words, feast, Sakath, right? Tabernacles for 7 days unto Yahweh. It goes on to say, one of the first shall be an Quadash, in other words, holy, Ma'quara'ah, convocation, ye shall do no servile work therein. But it didn't stop there. Verse 36. 7 days ye shall offer an offering made of fire unto Yahweh. On the 8th day shall be an holy Quadash, convocation, Ma'quara'ah, unto Yahweh, unto you. And ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh. It is a solemn assembly. Ye shall do no servile work therein. Verse 37. These are the feasts, Chag, of Yahweh, which ye shall proclaim to be holy, Quadash, convocations, Ma'quarah, to offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh, a burnt offering, a meat offering, a sacrifice, and drink offerings, everything upon his day. Verse 38, beside the Shabbats of Yahweh, and beside your gifts, and beside all your vows, and beside all your free will offerings, which ye give unto Yahweh. You don't see anything about Queen of Heaven worship. What Israel was doing when you get to the book of Jeremiah, they were taking things from other cultures. This is where you start getting into syncretism, right? Syncretism, right? They were taking things from other cultures and mixing and meshing it with the feast days. That's why you see in Hosea. That's why you see in Amos chapter 5. You see when the Most High is telling Israel, I don't honor your solemn gatherings. I don't honor that, because you're mixing and meshing it with other cultures, the very people I told you to stay away from. Now you're taking their belief systems and you're bringing it into the temple. Guess what? Are we not seeing that in the Christian, Catholic, church? Are we not seeing that among the name stealers, 1948ers? Are we not seeing that among Islam? That spirit of Baal, which means mixing, confusion by mixing. And I'm going to post the definition here real quick. Right? So, matter of fact, let me post it real quick. I think this is a good place to put it here. Yeah, let me put it here so that way you guys can see that the definition of this is not something that I am making up. I like to show sources. All right. And then we'll break down why I am using this source. All right. So let me add a new slide here. You guys are going to see me create a slide on the fly. Put a lot of time and effort into these presentations. So let me put Baal here. Let's see here. Let me see here. Wrong one. Let me put it here. All right. Almost done here. Just so that way we all on the same page. Slow it in. Let me put the backdrop to it. All right. So let me show you what Baal or Babylon, let me show you what it means. All right, let's back it up here. Look at what it says. Baal, confusion. Look at here, Babylonian empire, confusion by mixing. And you see that in the backdrop here. Let's go to the background here. Look at here. Babel or Babylon equals confusion by mixing. Let me say that one more time. Babel or Babylon, right? Confusion by mixing. That's the whole spirit of Catholicism. That's the whole spirit of Islam. That's the whole spirit of Christianity. That's the whole spirit of Judaism. Confusion by mixing. All these so-called Abrahamic faiths create confusion by mixing. So I want to make sure I put that on the screen so that way you guys can see. And I'll drop a link for those. I see someone posting the Sefer Bible and the Hallelujah Scriptures. Both of those are not good Bibles. And I'm going to, I created a template and I'll drop the link and you guys can review it. We'll do that at the conclusion of the lesson. All right. So those are not good Bibles. Matter of fact, the Sefer Bible I believe was solely put together for the person that created it, the CEO, is to sell his books to this awakening. He made it specifically for this awakening. Didn't vet it or anything. Right. He's the same one that said that we are Israelites, right? Let me show you here. This is the guy right here that created the Sefer Bible. Look at what he says about our people. Look at what he says about the Negro. Let me see here. Let me pull it up here real quick and then we'll continue. Because we got a few minutes.
Hitler was, and the Nazis, of course, expanded on Margaret Sanger's approach to eugenics, right? Eugenics was a movement that was born in the United States under hard doctrines of racism, with the intent of eliminating the tribe of Judah in the African-American community in this country, right? To eliminate them. With the intent of eliminating the tribe of Judah, with
the intent of eliminating the tribe of Judah in the African-American community in this country, right? To eliminate them.
And see, right now he says that he's Judah now. That's what he says. He said he's Judah. So I got to give him the garbage can award. All right. But let's continue. I'll drop the link for the Sefer Bible that I put together a template for the Sefer Bible, including the Hallelujah Bible or scriptures or whatever. And I did an assessment. I created a template to do an assessment on different Bible transliterations or Bible versions. And it picks it apart. all right, and expose the agendas of it, of those Bible translations or Bible versions. Sefer doesn't even refer to itself as a Bible; it's a book. All right, but anyway, Yahweh himself commands Israel to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. It is rooted in their departure from Egypt, a remembrance of Israel dwelling in booths after leaving Egypt. Scripturally, Sakath is not fertility, is not a fertility worship. It's not that by any means, nor is it derived from the Queen of Heaven cults. It is a commandment, right? It is commanded directly from Yahweh with clear covenantal meaning. Has nothing to do with the Queen of Heaven worship. Hane doesn't anchor his claims in Torah. Instead, he imposes a comparative religion sex symbolism framework. That's why he misreads the commandments driven nature of the feast days. But what is true is that the Queen of Heaven cult was a real temptation in Judah. Jeremiah, he testifies of this. As I pointed out, Jeremiah chapter 2, right? When you deal with the Israel doing sexual perversions upon every high hill, under every green tree, playing the harlot. Chapter 7, when you see the mention of the Queen of Heaven. Chapter 10, taking that tree from off those hills, putting it, erecting them in their homes, and doing prostitution, committing prostitution underneath them. And then chapter 44, when you see that the women are rebelling when Jeremiah brings to their attention about worshiping the Queen of Heaven with what? Milking cookies. I mean, I know that's Santa Claus, right? Baking cakes and having drink offerings to the Queen of Heaven. All right. But anyway, but what is true is that the Queen of Heaven cult was a real temptation in Judah, exactly as Jeremiah testifies. So why am I using this source as a reference? And I'm going to show you why. This source makes a great connection between the Alpha and Omega symbolism and phallic worship. Right? Let's go to this, back to this book here. Let's go to page 403 and 404. Let's see what it says, and then we're gonna do a deeper dive in this here and wrap it up. We're gonna highlight this here. Right? Notice the palm tree, the symbolism. Right? This is part of phallic worship. Notice the snake wrapping around this log. Right? This is I'm not even going to put the cart before the horse. I'm going to leave that one alone. I'll do that later on this weekend. All right? But notice here, you see the Omega, you see the Alpha, you see the Omega, the Alpha. This is phallic worship. This is what Israelites were committing. This is the source, the root to the groves, tree worship. That's why I zoomed in more so you could see it closer on your screen. I hope this helps. The palm tree was a symbol having two separate phallic meanings. Its stem had the same meaning as that of the oak or the cedar, while its new leaves issuing from the center as a firm, upright rod of scepter form coupled with its seed vessels hanging from the lower part of the leafy head, could not escape the eye of these early people who sought eagerly for every phallic similitude in nature. Later, Greek Alpha and Omega were put on this tree to indicate that the sex organs were the beginning and end of life. See, when you understand Revelation chapter 1, Alpha and Omega, beginning and the end, is referring to sexual organs. That's not the proper understanding of the text. What it actually means, the proper Hebraic school of thought, is the ah and the tha, which forms the word sign. And the Most High is saying the signs come through him. And we have proof all through the scriptures, starting with Moses in Genesis chapter 4, actually starting at chapter 2, but chapter 4, when Moses asked for signs. the Most High provided him signs for the hard-headed Israelites who needed what? Proof. It's fine. Signs, proof, and evidence. So here, when we see Alpha and Omega, this is why I couldn't roll with the beginning and the end, because that is, especially when I understand the languages, not just the languages, but also the culture. Alpha and Omega is referring to sexual organs, were the beginning and end of life, and represent creation in figure 15. The alpha was, as shown in Hebrew, Aleph, right? Given the symbol, did I put it? I didn't put the figure here. Originally, the rod and serpent, as in figure 14 or 17, representing the phallus or pillar in sexual passion, or and you see the serpent. So, nevertheless, that Aleph, or the Aleph rather, that box letter, right? It comes from a stick with a serpent wrapped around it. That's not the ancient Paleo letter. The Aleph is the head of an ox. Come on, family. This is why the Messiah said, think not that I come to change the law of the prophets, Matthew chapter 5. But he goes on to say, not one jot or what tittle, that's what the transliteration is, the Greek, but actually from a Hebraic school of thought, he said, don't even touch the hairs of any letter, the hairs or horns of any letters, because the ancient Paleo letters had hair, it had horns. The original Yod, that's the proper pronunciation, had horns. The original Aleph had horns, not what we see today, the block letters that have been changed, swapped out. Jot, tittle, jot, right, is the Hebrew word is iota, which is the 8th letter in the Greek alphabet, right? And tittle, going all the way to the root, kara or karaya, means lock. It means hair. It means horn. So the Messiah is saying, don't even change a single letter of the text. He told his disciples, don't even change a single letter. And what do we see happening around us? All these Abrahamic religions have done what? Changed the letters, changed the words, because when the reason why he said the Yod, highlighted the Yod, right? When you see iota, right? The Yod, right? The reason why he targeted that, because the Yod means what? Redemption. When you start changing the hairs of each letter, you start changing what redemption really is. The pictograph is the outstretched arms, not a snake on a pole. Oh, come on, family. I could going in geek mode. Going geek mode. Now I'm gonna say this because I see some transliterations here. I'm gonna say this: the Hallelujah scriptures in the Sefer Bible, those are the names that they have there, and I'm gonna get there in a second. I'm gonna really deal with it this weekend. They're not the holy names, right? They're still transliterations. They're still interpolated vocals or a phonology, right? The KJV or the Amplified Bible, right? Those, even though it doesn't have the ancient names, they're more viable. That's more of a viable transliteration than the Sefer in the Hallelujah Bible. So this is why I'm going through this here, and I'm going to update my lessons that I have on my Patreon account. I'm currently doing laying out the plan right now, and I'm going to start recording it. And for those that want to really learn the ancient language, free from all these layers of interpolation, it's going to be there. All right. Nevertheless, let me go ahead and wrap this up. I've been going for a while, almost 2 hours. All right, getting close to my threshold here. All right. So again, originally the rod and the serpent, as in figure 14 or 17, representing the phallus or pillar in sexual passion, the serpent. Okay. And also, you'll see this ties also with Hinduism. The omega, the ineffable or great O, is the universal female symbol identical with our lucky horseshoe, and finds its most vigorous expression in the very holy Indian combination, much in Hindu architecture. I didn't put the figure here. I started to put here. I didn't have time to do it. To where you could see the structures, the yoni and the ligum. The ligum is the male reproductive organ. The yoni is the females, right? Which is also referred to as the delta, right? This is when I'm not getting into the fraternities and sororities right now, but anyway, where the lingam is seen through the yoni, omega, or great O. The Hindu arc is here seen to be clearly the Greek omega, and they both mean the same thing, as will be seen in comparing figures 18 and 19. I don't have that here. All right. But nevertheless, Hane ties the alpha and omega to phallic plus womb symbols. In other words, alpha being the phallus or rod, omega being the womb, the yoni. In fertility cults, these symbols represent the beginning and end of life through sexual union and rituals. In Hindu, they call it the Kali dance of death, right? The hexagram, this is where the hexagram comes from. This is where the so-called Magen Dawid or Magen Dawad, the Megan David, the Star David comes from this. By connecting this to the Feast of Tabernacles, water libation, Hane suggests Israel was influenced by the fertility cult, the Queen of Heaven. So even if Hannity went overboard with his assumptions that the Feast of Tabernacles were rooted in the Queen of Heaven worship rituals, but he was correct with Israel's struggle with the worship of the Queen of Heaven, like we see today, right? Still struggling with that. So Hane may be heavy-handed with his understanding of the scripture, but his link between the Alpha and Omega symbolism and the Queen of Heaven helps expose the deception. Jeremiah 7, Jeremiah 44 shows this was already Israel's stumbling block. Wrapping this up. So what is the source? What is the overall point of showing the source? What was the overall point of me showing the source, and even for this lesson? The Roman Catholics adopted, right, the Alpha and Omega with pagan sexual associations as a Christ title, while also elevating Mary as Queen of Heaven. That's right. The Catholic Church refers to Mary as the Queen of Heaven. This is coming from a source, the Time magazine. Search for Mary, December 30th, 1991. Look at this here. And I'm going to drop the link in the comment section so that way you guys could go back on your leisure and review my sources, right? I know we covered a lot. Let me drop this link. And I got another link that I want to show you to really reiterate, bring this point home from their sources. All right, let me drop this link. I see someone, that's right, the Book of Jasher. And I encourage you, I did a lesson. You can, I would encourage you to go into the playlist or go to the video section or the live section and just do a search. I did a lesson titled Mystical Scrolls, and I really break down the Book of Jasher, expose the Book of Jashers, right? There's two of them. Both of them are forgeries. So you're absolutely correct. And that was one of the issues that I had with the Sefer Bible and some of the material that it had included inside its book, because it showed me that they didn't take any time to vet anything, that they were just pushing it to ride the momentum of this awakening. All right. But great comments. And I'll drop the link. I'm going to drop the link before when we get to the end of this, so that way you guys can use it to vet. All right, let's see here. All right. All right. So peep this out, family. All right. Look at what it says. Even the Quran praises her chastity and faith. Among Roman Catholics, the Black Madonna is recognized not only as the mother of God, there we have it again, the mother of God, got her, but also, according to modern popes, as the queen of the universe, right? Uni, and the doctors of Uni, queen of heaven, seat of wisdom, and even the spouse of the Holy Spirit. So why is Mary called the Queen of Heaven in the Catholic Church? Why is Mary called the Queen of Heaven in the Catholic Church? Well, guess what? We're going to allow the Catholic Church to answer this question. That's right, family. We're using their sources. So no one can say to you that you're making this stuff up. Because over here, again, on this channel, for those that are really searching for truth, we come with the truth. We give the truth here. We give the sources. So let me drop this inside the chat. All right. And all right, so let's break this down. Let's break this down. All right. All right, this is what we're going to read. Why is Mary called the Queen of Heaven? This is a Catholic source. Listen to their explanation of what they give. Answer: Mary as Queen of Heaven is an ancient address to Mary used in prayer that dates back to at least the 4th century. The imagery of Mary as Queen of Heaven was very popular in the Middle Ages, and its theological basis derived from the notion of Jesus as king. The New Testament uses this image of a king to describe Jesus. In Israel, the mother of the king held the role of Queen Mother. In essence, she held a role of great prominence in the court, and the king would usually acquiesce, to her wishes. In 1st and 2nd Kings are almost always listed with their mothers and are depicted as advising their sons. As Jesus is king, that makes Mary his Queen Mother. Be careful, family, because there's people in this awakening and outside of this awakening that are using titles called Queen Mother. As Jesus is king, that makes Mary his Queen Mother, according to Jewish tradition. Getting to the king through the Queen Mother, there you have it again, is a natural thought and spurred Christians to ask Mary to intercede with Jesus on their behalf. Mary's queenship is a share in Jesus' kingship. You see what's happening here? Emasculate the Father, get him out of the picture, elevate the Son, and Mary as being deities. All right, let me say this real quick. Simeon, don't post comments like this inside my chat. All right? Don't post comments like that. It's very disrespectful. I'm not even going to read what you said, but that's very disrespectful. That's very disrespectful with eating the meat and spitting out the bones and all that other stuff towards this channel. That's why I'm giving you sources. I'd rather for you to just take the sources and read. I don't need you to post inside the chat any comments of disrespect, whether it's intentional or unintentional. But we don't need any disrespect here. All right? No disrespect. Because everything I shared is truth. I shared nothing but truth on this channel. Whether you agree or disagree, it's the truth. Like the old school would say, it's the truth, Ruth. All right. Shout outs to Jermaine. Thank Brother Jermaine. Thank you for the love and support. Thank you, Brother Thomas, for the love and support. Thank you, Emma Horton. Thank you for the love and support. Thank you, our sister here. Let me start over here. Acknowledge everyone. Dewan, thank you for the love and support. Charles, Brother Charles Miller. Thank you. Thank you for the love and support. Mika, thank you for the love and support. Jermaine, Brother Jermaine Jenkins, thank you for the love and support. Thomas Baker, thank you for the love and support. Emma Horton, thank you for the love and support. And family, let's show some love for everyone that have contributed to the work that we're doing. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. And I hope this is helping you guys that are listening at work, give you something to think about as you help your day go move along. So let's go ahead and wrap this up here. I'm getting closer to the end. But as you see with the Roman Catholic Church's own mouth, they make it clear that Mary, they refer to Mary as being the Queen of Heaven. They made it clear that they don't want you to know, even mention the Father's name. They want Mary and Yahweh Shai to be elevated. They're Jesus, because that's not the Messiah of the scriptures. They're creating their own Jesus, their own Christ. That's their Christ, but not the Hebrew Israelite Messiah of the text, because he would never support this craziness. All right? So let's wrap this up. How does this circle back to the usage of God, gods, or got and God? Or how does this circle back to the overall discussion that we're dealing with today? Etymology shows that God, in other words, God, is from Proto-Germanic, the word gudan or gutan, meaning that which is invoked or sacrificed to. The answer is God or God is used generically for any deity, including idols. The Most High don't want to share spaces. That's why he made it clear what his name is. The Most High don't want to share spaces. That's why he made it clear, don't invoke any other names or any other deities, including their reputation. He said, don't invoke that. Don't bring it into his place of worship. Through syncretism, the Catholic translators chose God or Got and Lord as the mandatory substitute for Yahweh's covenant name. We shared the sources. It's in the comment section or in the chat. This forces every reader prayer to invoke a foreign deity titled not Yahweh himself. That's why it never resonated with me when it said God. I didn't feel comfortable with that. When you say God in the church, guess what? Who are you talking to? Who are you making reference to? Because you have demons, you have devil worshipers in church. That's why you got to be more specific. Who are you talking about? Who are you making reference to? It's so generic, even the word church. Anyway, let's keep it going. What is the significance of the use of the Alpha and Omega? What is the key tool that's instrumental with the cult of Baal and carrying out their agenda, and how they keep updating their agenda and how they're still able to be here today, nested? How are they able to do this? Guess what, family? The answer is language. Let me say that again. The answer is through languages. And I'm going to give you a source here dealing with diphthongs, because that OA is also synonymous to the UA. Those make the UA sound or the OA sound. OA, UA. So I want to share a special source as we wrap this up for those that are studying the Israeli language that is called Hebrew, which is not. But let me just show you something, a key point here as we wrap this up. This is dealing with the matrilectionis. Look at what it says. The usage of certain consonants to indicate a vowel in the spelling of Hebrew, Aramaic, Syriac languages is called matrilectionis, right? And look, it's the key to it. This epiphenomenal association between consonant letters and vowels was then seized upon and used in words without historic diphthongs. So this is telling you that they implemented this vowel system that is not an ancient voweling system, because in ancient Hebrew, Paleo Hebrew, they didn't have dots, they didn't have vowel letters. All they had was the letters, the consonants themselves. And the consonants, for every consonant, it was associated with by way of the ah sound. That's why they didn't have to write down consonants. When you start understanding the ancient Kemetic writings, they didn't have all these vowels. All these vowels were introduced by the descendants of Japheth. So in ancient Hebrew, didn't have all these vowels. It only had one vowel, which is the ah. as I played the video clip, giving you some clarity on the O. Other languages, they call it Ge'ez today, but the ancient pronunciation is Ga'az, which is an Ethiopian Shemitic language that had nothing but letters associated with the consonants. Oh, well, let me give you one more language. Sanskrit. Sanskrit originally with the consonants just had the sound. Oh, wow, Pastor. Yeah, I got another lesson I'm going to drop on you guys. Yeah. I'm not going to let the cat out the bag on that. But anyway, this group of people, this fierce nation of Japheth, they purposely targeted our language and other Shemitic languages, targeted keywords, and then they inserted diphthongs to it. That's what this source is saying. What is a diphthong? A diphthong is a sound made by combining two vowels, specifically when a start of one vowel sound and goes to another, like the oi sound in oil. Diphthongo comes from the Greek. Comes from where? The Greek. What have we been dealing with this entire lesson? Dealing with the Greek word diphthongos, which means having two sounds. So the OA sound is a diphthong. The UA sound is a diphthong. And it targeted what? Key. It targeted keywords. What are the keywords? The Father's name, the Son's name, the Holy Spirit. Oh, come on, family. We just brought it all the way back home. All right? So the whole system of Greek diphthongs, like the AO sound, the UA sound, the OU, is part of the deception. These are, again, diphthongs, two vowels. As you see here, it's part of the deception because these sounds never existed in Paleo-Hebrew phonology. That's a fact. This is part. Let me fix this slide before I forget. Let me fix these transitions. My apologies, family. We almost finished. I'm going to share one more source before we wrap up. Y'all got me working today. All right. So the use of diphthongs like the AO or UA or UA and divine names such as Yahuwah, Yeshua, Ruach is part of the Greek interpolation and Catholic suppression of the true ancient language, the language of Judah that we highlighted in Nehemiah, right? Last point I want to make, because we have some that hold on to this V sound and U sound, even when they try to take ancient letters, the Paleo letters, and they'll take the Y and try to make it into an O sound. They try to make it into a U sound. None of the ancient Shemitic languages had vowel letters, and they did not have a U sound. The Y made exactly the sound that it made, right? This is coming from Edward Horowitz. I have other sources, but I just want to put this in real quick, right? Look at what it says here. The answer is that the sound Y a long time ago wasn't Vav at all. But Y is, they said, Y and W, Y is weak. They were trying to say it's weak, right? The pronunciation is weak, but at all. But Y and Y is weak. It drops out of large numbers of English. But nevertheless, the Yemenite Jews of Arabia who retained an ancient, correct, and pure pronunciation of Hebrew still pronounce the Y as W, as is Arabic, the close sister language of Hebrew. All right. So doing my research on other Semitic languages, right? They don't have the Va sound. That's the point I want to make. Ancient Hebrew, Arabic, Amharic, actually, when we really, Amharic is modern, but Ga'az, that's dealing with the Ethiopians, right? Syriac, Mandean are Semitic languages. And guess what? None of them. All these languages still preserve the wa and not a va, except modern or Israeli so-called Hebrew, which appears to have adopted it from the Germanic languages. And we're going to stop right here. Oh, man. We're going to stop right here. We're going to stop right here. Whoo, family. Brother work today. Really appreciate you guys. Really appreciate the love and support. If you haven't, click that like, subscribe to the channel. If you are subscribed to the channel or believe that you are still subscribed to the channel, double check, because YouTube has a history of removing subscribers. Since I had this channel up, they have removed over 25,000 subscribers, literally deleted. I saw the statistics on that. So technically we should be well over easily 120, 130,000 subscribers. All right. I want to say this and make it clear. This lesson was not about trying to hurt anyone's feelings, but if feelings got hurt because of the teaching the truth, so be it. I'm going to continue to teach the truth. All right. So I want to encourage you guys, even after we conclude, I'm going to encourage you guys to keep the conversation going in the chat, right? In the comment section. Post a comment there, because that helps with the algorithm, with the reachability of the lesson. So let me do one more thing. I did say I was going to do this. Let me go ahead and drop the link to the Sefer, right? And I encourage you guys, go back over it and read it, because it's a lot of information in it, but this is an assessment on the Sefer Bible. All right, let me see here. I'm going to drop it inside the comment section. All right, let's see here. All right. With that being said, family, in the words of Yahweh in Exodus chapter 14, verse 13 to 14, as he addressed the children of Israel through Moses, he gave them this encouraging word. He said to them, "Fear ye not, stand still, and see the salvation of Yahweh. These Egyptians that you see here today will not have power over you ever again. The Most High will fight for you." But here's the kicker. We have to hold our peace. The Hebrew word in that text is not shalom. Some of you guys would say shalom. The Hebrew word in that text is charash, which means be quiet. Can't go back. Can't stay here. Keep moving forward. Shalom.
Listen, Genesis chapter 11, verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this back, Genesis 14, verse 13, Abraham steps on the scene. Being a descendant of Shem, which is a fact, means Abraham too was black. Abraham, born in the city of a black man, called Nimrod, grandson of Ham. Ham had 4 sons. One was named Canaan. Here, let me do some explaining. Abraham, Isaac was Jacob had 12 sons, for real, and these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10.